was hoping that my board president would come so he could sign checks tonight.
That's right.
But he didn't. I mean, he might come. Did you get this set up?
Yeah, I did.
This is a failure to signal. She had an event last night. And she said, my phone just went off. I forgot about tonight.
No.
Well, it's not.
Just keep it on. I think you caught it.
Yeah, I can end it and start it over. Let's do it.
Do you know if we need to get a model release to take pictures of some of these people? Do they have like built-in like, hey, you're participating in your kind of
We've never done it, so don't worry about it.
aware of like people like so
Don't worry about it.
It's 6:59, Celestine. Just FYI.
No. Sorry.
My name is Celestine Bloomfield. I'm so glad to be here because we were treats. I went online, I looked at all pictures. So, I think that's it. Anyway, this is how you do. You find out what the theme is for today. And then you look at the others, okay? And I'm very, very happy that our theme tonight is companionship. My name is Celestine Bloomfield. I want to welcome you here to our Story Slam. And I know you're looking at me like, I just came here to listen. But no, that's not what we want. We want you to listen to, we want you to tell. And let me tell you something that you don't know. What's going to happen is, one person is going to tell a story. And as they are telling that story, you think, oh, that happened to me. And before the end of the night, you don't want to come over and sign up, and we'll pull your name from this lovely line and green basket, and you will something. Let me tell you how this is done. This is brought to you by Storytelling Arts in Indiana and Springtown Village. And we are so happy to have our sponsor, Maestro Organizing. He's not here tonight, but you tell me, I was going to sign up for him to come organize my house. But no, he didn't come. Make sure you get that one, okay? I have 2 rooms of it, I don't know. But breaks are here tonight, but that's okay. We're our sponsors, we appreciate it. So it's gonna be FYI. Now you want to know that you have to tell a story 5 minutes or less in the first person. You are not allowed notes, no little transponders in your ear. You need to tell it from your gut, okay? And it's supposed to be a true story, but unless we see your nose crossed, we will not know if it's a true story or if it's something you add a little yeast to. At any rate, I know that there's a good story tonight. I kept thinking, companionship. Companionship. What does that mean? You know, my mother used to have a saying, after my father had left the house, and I had my brother Sam was in for a while, we were calling each other on the phone long distance, we were saying, home alone. There's something about being home alone. I remember one time being so bored, I called my niece, and I was ready to go get her dog. And bring the dog into my house. And she looked at me startled and said, why would you do that to me? You know? So I thought they were it. Because if you can't get it, if you get it in the skin, I really don't need it in my house. Okay? That's just my opinion. But I know, every time I go to my brother's house and he says to his dog, say hello to your auntie. Because they kept a live companionship. And that's our thing for tonight. If at any time you want to tell a story, let me know. Now, I don't want you to think we're just looking for another free class. We have monetary rewards for telling the first, second, or third best story. So that gives you the little incentive to come on up here and want to tell the tale. So right now, I pulled out a tale telling. A very fancy name, a name like Cher. One word. But I can't wait to hear the story that Blaze is going to tell. Come on up, Blaze.
I'm gonna see.
And learn to live. Some of you guys know this in the crowd. I'm a lifelong wrestler. I don't necessarily look hard enough like short, stocky dude with messed up ears. The best years of my life were definitely college. And before I went to college, I was kind of weird about it, a little scared, a little terrified. I didn't necessarily go to college as a student athlete. I wrestled in high school, but I honestly didn't have really good friends on that team. I got to college. I wasn't really know anybody who was about to transfer to IU. I actually go to U of I now, U of Indy. And I was kind of hanging around, out around the dorm room, and I stumbled upon some guys that I kind of recognized their faces, and it was this guy named Dawson Calvez, and he beat the snot out of me about a month beforehand. And so, I seen him a couple times, said hi, we kind of knew each other, not really. But he was pretty welcoming for a not so welcoming person. He's one of my best friends now, and he's the reason why I joined the Indie Wrestling team. I walked on, and it was the best experience of my life. I wasn't the best wrestler, but I call myself a utility wrestler. I had, I was, some artists are one-hit wonders. I was a one-move wonder. So that helped me a little bit, but it didn't matter because I was with my friend Dawson and a couple of my other buddies, Jack, Trey, and Terry. I ended up living with those guys for about 4 to 5 years. And those are the best years of my life thus far. So that's my story about companionship.
Stage and rock star. The ladies up to there. You know, I got friends who have their exes. They are still friends with all their ex-boyfriends and husbands. I don't know how to do it. Because when I'm out in public and I see you and you see me, we normally make a U-turn. There's no companionship left whatsoever. But now, I'll give the judges. Time to judge. We want to thank them. We won't tell you who they are until the very end. But now you see how easy that story was, ladies? So you got one of those stories. That was a good story. But I got another story. My roommate and I, well, we weren't roommates then. I don't know what the argument was about. I used to ride my bike back and forth across campus. And for some reason, we stopped at the intersection of the circle, which turned into an argument, which turned into, what was it, hitting. But her fingernails had dug into my wrist. And I don't know if my hands were around her throat, but each person was saying, let go, let go, let go. And I, you can withstand fingernails in the wrist longer than people can withstand being choked to death. Move on to the middle semester, and she needed a roommate. And they called from housing and asked me if I minded her being my roommate. And not wanting to air my dirty laundry, I said, well, that's up to her. And sure enough, we became roommates. We've been friends since I was in college. So I understand how it works. It works so good. But right now, Deja Baby is coming up. Watch
out. Yeah. Maybe we should just sit here.
So I find it very ironic that it gains companionship because right now I'm truly learning what it is to have a real companion. How many of you have dogs?
I do.
Well, right now I have a dog named Rose. She's a toy poodle, 8 months of a dog. There's a story behind getting her. So I knew that I needed a dog because I encountered so much loss in my life through such a I needed something to work on, something cute, cuddly, not a baby, because I'm not ready for that. But it's something that's easy to take care of, etc. So I decided to get a dog named Rose. Well, I brought Lily Rose to my dormitory, not realizing the rules and regulations behind having a dog in the door. They told me that I had to be rid of everything. And I 24 hours she must have done. Don't practice scrolling. Don't judge me for not properly going through the channels. I didn't think about it. I honestly didn't. But I could just bring it all to the campus. No problems. Well, me and Ellie had to leave. I was not giving her up to a shelter. I was keeping her, so we went to stay with my human feeding companion, significant other, and was at his home. And I had to miss some classes to figure out what to do with my baby that I just got that I'm not doing with. So this happens. I'm giving Ellie back temporarily to her owner, her previous owner. And she's going to be great. This is going to be her third litter. Okay, she's only 8 pounds. You know, but it's going to buy me some time. I'm going to get her back because she's my baby. You know, I don't want to offend you guys with this statement, but I feel like the mother is like lost custody of her child and trying to like go through the proper channels in the court system of getting her back. That's how I feel about Ellie when she's worked her life. And just wish me luck, because I need her back. Thank you guys so much. That's my story.
Tell
Deja. DJ. I have a great niece named Deja. That was just one. You know, I was for a little bit past, and I have nothing bad to say about it. But I see her friend having a hard time. She was scraping money up, not to feed herself, but to feed her dog and her cat. And I got to thinking about, where would that dog and that cat be? I need to eat. They live in a white old age. She finally got another dog. And I think they're buried somewhere at Pet Cemetery. That's how much family they meant to us. Okay? Now, I know you just heard Deja's story. You're thinking about, oh, yeah, I remember the time. There is still time to fill out one of these little slips. There's plenty of time. But right now, I'm going to reach down in the bottom, pull out one of these folded up slips. I don't know why people hold them up. They think maybe you're going to find it. But right now, she was here till you come up here. It's your turn to tell the story.
So one of the ways I learned about companionship was my year-long residency as a hospital chaplain. And what I loved about that is you got to accompany people through their life journey and show up however you need. So one day I was with this young patient and she was, just talking about the challenges she had. And then she says, "Chap, this isn't kids." Okay, she didn't say kids, she said something else. And me with my clinical knowledge and expertise, I replied back with, "You're right, this isn't kids." And then I got like, that is the worst thing he said, "You're the worst shopper, and she's gonna tell you never have ever come in my room. Why did you even say that? Why did I say something crazy? Why did you even say that?" And she's looking at me like, "I can't believe you said that." And so I said, "I'll just say to myself, just be quiet, and just let her talk." So I said, "Tell me why." And she poured out for about an hour. And when she finished, she said, "Chap, thank you." And I was kind of turning around to see another chaplain that walked in because I thought I knew that business. She said, "When I said, this is the kids," and she didn't say kids, and you came back at me and said, "You're right." First of all, I wasn't expecting you to say that, but when you said it, I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt worthy. And she said, "You have to understand, I'm with doctors every day, nurses waking me up to give me medicine, going to rehab, and when I try to see how I feel, my family's like, hey, you know what? We're not going to know. Let's not talk about that. Let's think about something else." And I felt like I made a word. But you gave me the opportunity when you said, "This is the kids." That's not the word. You made me feel seen, you made me feel acknowledged, and you made me feel worthy. And I was able to pour out something that I've been keeping in ever since I got to the hospital. So after that, she said, "So, are you going to be my companion again?" I said, "I got you. My job is just to show up however you need." I went to my office and wrote my verbatim, which is basically a summary of the visit. And my supervisor says, "What did you learn?" I learned what it means to be a companion. It means showing up however they need to. And tonight, being a companion meant keeping my mouth closed, being present, and just listening. Because that's what companions do, showing up however they need.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. You know, I'm old because I have a subscription to Next Avenue. Y'all know that's AARP publication. Telling the youngsters over there. Don't be offended when you turn 49 and the mail starts coming to your house. But one of the pieces they talk about is as an elderly person. And they were saying something like 80. That's still too young for that. How what you missed was companionship. Because your contemporaries have died, your family might have moved away, and that's what you miss, companionship. So what you need to do is go out and find some new companions. It might be a crochet club, it might be the casino girls, it might be the martini women, you never know. But you need to go find some new companions, and that's what I heard in your story. Thank you so much. when you open it up. It makes you pick them up. You just left them home. I don't know what they are, but no, we had to open it up. And our next teller is, Jen, please. Jen, come on down. That's okay, we got all night.
So when I think of my dearest companion, I think of my first car. It was a 90-something Honda Civic. I never knew exactly how many miles were on it because the previous owner, a shady but lovable character named Lafayette, and incidentally, I had found this part of the classified section of the Indy Star. Lafayette had adjusted the mileage for me before I got it. And there were no bells and whistles on this car. It was definitely not a sports car, but it was sports car red, which I loved. And it performed terribly on the snow. So I lovingly named this car the Red Sled. And I bought it right out of college. And to me, this car meant adulthood and freedom. It was my first grown-up purchase, and for the first time in my life, I didn't have to beg anyone for a ride, and I didn't have to ask to borrow the car. I could just go. Well, the Red Sled got me to and from my first real job every day. It got me to South Bend and back to visit old college friends in the tailgate. And when I eventually went off to grad school in Pittsburgh, the Red Sled got me through there and back through all kinds of weather. And by the time I met my husband, Danny, the Red Sled was an old lady. She was duct taped in parts, the timing belt was shot, and somehow the driver's seat had snapped off on one of my trips back from Pittsburgh, and my dad found a replacement at a junkyard. And still, she was my pride and joy. And as Danny did not own a car, something that would take more than 5 minutes to explain, but basically involves his tree-hugging tendencies and general stubbornness. I drove everywhere, and the Red Sled went with us all over days. Which was the case one hot July night when we had been invited to a pool party. And I was driving, of course, nobody drives the Red Sled but me. Danny's my passenger. And as we approached the host house, it's clear that there's only parking on the street. And there's tons of parking. The street's almost empty. But Danny starts pointing out places he thinks I should park. The most obvious being right in front of the host house. But I don't care for that. I don't like it, and I'm the driver, and the passenger is telling me where to park my car. And so, to mess with Danny, I drove way down the street and parked. Now, in our very special relationship, this is the sort of move that we think is funny and endearing. And so, Danny liked this almost as much as I did. So anyway, we go to the pool party, we're having a great time. The weather is perfect. Perfect. Not a cloud in the sky, no rain, not even the slightest breeze. And I share this with you so that you can share in my shock when the host comes out and says, does anybody here own a red Honda Civic with duct tape and license plate number 141YCH? And I'm like, is it a sports car red Honda Civic with duct tape and license plate number 141YCH? Turns out that way down the street, seemingly out of the blue, an entire tree had uprooted and fallen just on my head. We rushed outside, and I can barely see my car through the branches of this tree. And it's smashed. I can tell from the look it's total. It wouldn't take much. It wasn't worth much by then. And I did the only thing I could do. I started to laugh. And then Danny and I started taking lots of selfies with the dead tree and the dead car. Many years later, Danny told me that night, when the tree fell on my car and I chose to laugh, that was the night he knew he wanted to marry me. And so, when I think of my dearest companion, I remember my first car.
My first car was red too. I call it a red berry. I drove that car from Iowa to Indiana to Ohio to Tennessee to Oklahoma. When I finally had to get a new car, my father said to me, well, you can order this one. But I love my car I have now. It's 2004. A Buick Honda. They don't even make them anymore. I would have Pete on one side. But I'm looking for this little part. And he's going to use 3D printers, or I'm going to the junkyard. And I'm going to find that part so I can have heat on both sides of my car this way. But I understand about that companionship. When I know that is another story to your mind. I can see the gears just churning. I'm looking at y'all. But right now, I'm waiting for a shaft black to come on up and tell us something.
I did not add any yeast to this story. Shortly after we moved, when I was 11, there was a new companion brought into our household. Thanks to someone my mother knew, I think at work. The new companion was Herman. And Herman was a kind of live culture yeast rising dough that you could put into the fridge and feed from time to time and mush back down into the bowl. And after so many days, you would have enough Herman to bake delicious cinnamon rolls and give some Herman out to your friends who didn't have any yet, and put the rest back in the fridge where you could feed it from time to time, mush it down into the bowl, and make delicious cinnamon rolls and give some Herman out to the friends who hadn't given it to you before, and put the rest back in the fridge where you could feed it and mush it down and make delicious cinnamon rolls and give it to the friends you still had who didn't have any yet, and put the rest back in the fridge where Herman was a more high-maintenance kind of companion than our rosy first impressions had led us to expect. And when Herman's needs were not adequately met, Herman would rise out of that bowl and coat everything in the fridge with this sticky, gloopy dough. And you would deal with that and make up and promise to be more attentive. This is how a downward relationship spiral gets started. Herman's way of seeking attention, and you know that's what it is. If you try to be understanding, it just falls a little short every single time of rekindling those warmest feelings you had at the start. And so the time came that it was clear this Herman thing was not meant to be. And Herman was ushered into one of those remarkably stout green glass gallo wine jugs. The ones with the metal cap you could screw on right down tight. And in that condition, he was relegated to the trash sack under the counter with all the empty soup cans and everything else I don't really want in the story. And sad to say, after everything we'd all been through together, he was scarcely given another thought by any of us for nearly the rest of that day. We were at supper in the other room when the blast came, and we dove under the table. A little bit of a story behind that, some pointed differences between my mom and my uncle that hadn't flared up for a while. Those were at the top of our minds when we hit the floor, and we stayed there for a while, listening for signs of ongoing hostilities, before we crept out and made our way into the kitchen to see what was to see. And we saw all of those soup cans and everything else that I still didn't really want in the story all over the kitchen floor, and the soup cans were flattened. And that heavy green glass bottle, the bits of that were stuck in the walls of the kitchen, and it was no easy job prying those out. And so I'm thinking this is the kind of a story that maybe has more than one moral, and one of them is bringing a new companion into your life, choose thoughtfully. Try to see a little bit around the bend, and be realistic about how your routines are going to mesh. And for the second one, if it comes to a point where you can tell it's just not working out, try not to keep that lid screwed on so tight that something just has to blow.
I can tell by people's looks how many people have actually made that. And I remember that being in our house. And I don't know what happened to the end of that. But at some point, you just stop making prayers, okay? And your prayers will open the door and let you in. It's already made. Oh, thank you, Sharon. That was hilarious. Now, anybody that signed up now, there's still time. Still time. Remember, there's money involved. I don't like to brag you that way, but there is money involved. But we're going to listen to Noel Buell tell his story.
Too many of you believe little kids, and they say, get in the ball, I'll take care of it. I'll walk it, I'll do anything you want. If you do, you should leave. When my daughter was in kindergarten, my wife said, next summer we will get you a puppy. And I just looked at her like, are you nuts? What are you thinking? I didn't want a dog. I didn't have a dog growing up. I still don't want a dog. You don't want a dog? But she said, you can have a dog. Summer came, and my wife looked at me and said, you're right. I don't want a dog. And it's too late, right? No, it's not too late. Our house is too small. We don't have any place to put a dog in. We don't have any place to put food. We don't have any. So when we head over to your house, we will get a dog. So 7 years later, my daughter is at church camp, and my son, it's the summer, and my son looks at us and says, you promised a dog. We need to get a dog. And he would not be quoted. We got a dog. We bought a little Bichon that was about this big, puppy white, black eyes, black nose, cutest thing I ever saw. I didn't want a dog anyway. So we went to the parking lot to pick up my daughter. She came out from the bus, looked at the car, and started crying. She was so happy to see puppy. I still wasn't particularly happy. It was the sweetest dog. He had never learned to sit. He had never learned to stay. He had never learned to come when we called it. He had never learned to like any other dog anywhere. And the company had a dog to take care of. They refused it because it would not cooperate and chase the calmest dog was there was not worth the minimum. But it sat on the back of our couch where you could see our windows, out the back window, out the side window, and bark at anything that came within sight. But he would put his head on my shoulder and let me watch it. He would let me lay down in the floor in front of the fireplace, put my feet up in my backwards, and sit on my chest. And just stay there and run his face. And so he was wonderful for me, but it was my dog now. And so I was okay with the dog. 5 years into his life, we were taking him to walk in the neighborhood, and a dog attacked him, and he loses his left front leg. And he recovers incredibly. All we had to do was put the stool up so he could jump on the couch. Didn't let him go up and down the stairs because he was tumbling. But he lived 8 more years, a 3-legged Bashan that you had to scoop the snow off out front so when you go out the front door you would paint it. But he was a wonderful, wonderful dog, and he became my dog. Now, he's gone 4 years this week, and the geese will not come into our backyard because his spirit is still alive. So that's about Bo Bashan.
Something knocked my basketball onto the floor. Nobody was near it. It was the spirit of the dog or somebody thinking about signing up and tell a story. I know that's what it was. I'm see that. Let me mix it up. Because our next color is Abby. Is it postmark?
She worked a lot of home hours just to make sure I was taken care of and things like that. So I spent a lot of time with my grandma. She let me just kind of do my own thing, so I really just played with my dolls most of the time. Growing up, I didn't live in the nicest house, so the people who lived near me didn't have nothing to play with. So I really did just keep myself because I was an only child. So going into school, then there's people I had sleepovers with, there was people that I knew, and I hung out with at school and I played with them at recess, but there was something that I was missing in comparison to everybody else around me. So going into high school, I participated in different activities, and I was part of different friend groups because I'm just somebody who loves to just talk to everybody, I think. And so I watched all my friends go through their college decisions based on everybody else. They were thinking, my friend and I are going to Ball State, because that's where we want to go. And it was like I was watching people make decisions based on their friends. And I wasn't doing that. I was kind of making my decisions because I didn't have what they were having. I was friends with these people, but I didn't have them as a best friend. So I go to college, making friends with all these people, and I did this thing called being an orientation leader. If you haven't been to college for a while, an orientation leader is like those people who are up in your face at 8 o'clock in the morning yelling about how much they love being at you. Okay? I was that person. I was a nuisance to society, let me tell you. I still am, because I still do it sometimes. I'm so glad I did this job though, because I got to meet my best friend. And that was what I was lacking. I finally felt like I was completing that piece of me, and I felt like everybody else. So my best friend, her name is Ariana. She's a goofy girl, let me tell you, so she never fails to make me laugh. Because of Ariana, I got to meet her sister Maddie, and Maddie never fails to make me smile every day. The three of us became a trio, inseparable. And so they won't leave me alone sometimes, and I'm so glad because, all those days I spent alone thinking, man, what would it be like to have a best friend? I don't think of it now, and it's great. I know that our journeys are different, and we're not going to be best friends, maybe we're not going to live together anymore, and maybe our stories will be different and we go different places. But I know right now that I'm thankful to have them around, and I'll never forget the companionship that they taught me, and I will forever be thankful.
That was wonderful. You know what happens, Abby, is they move to other countries, other states, and when you get together, it's just like you never were gone. So you'll be friends for life. I know some of you are still thinking, I got another story to tell. I got plenty of time, I got plenty of blank slips, and I'm hearing some great stories. I'm trying to make this a blind draw. Our next teller is Jacob Walton.
Just a heads up, I'm not going to be as positive as everybody else's, but just a little over 2 weeks ago, my father had a heart attack. And when I first heard about this event, I knew I wanted to speak about my father and his connection within my life. Because throughout my entire life, there has been one constant. It's not been my mom, it's not been my grandparents, it's not been friends, anybody else. It's been my dad. Through the ups, the downs, the big moments, graduations, sport events, all that, it's been my dad. He's been there for all. And on October 30th, I had a sombering moment where I realized the mortality of my own father. He ended up going in for heart surgery and had 2 stents placed into his heart for a massive heart. He is doing well at this point, for those that are under him. I am very grateful for that. But that's a day that I will never forget. That Monday, I remember going to work at the University of Indianapolis and seeing power hours. And I already said to myself, man, this is going to be an interesting day. Power is not all across the news. I went in to check with one of my friends who happens to be the basketball coach, GA, and he said, I'm an assistant. And we ended up going to my apartment to get work done because I still had power in my apartment just off campus. And I remember exactly where in my living room working on whatever we had to be working on. And 11:38, my mother calls me. And if you don't know anything about my mother, my mom is not like a bother me when I'm busy. Even though I told her on multiple occasions, never worry about that. I'm always there. I'm the only child that I have, and I'm close to my parents to the day I die. And she cold calls me, and whenever she cold calls me, I know it's not good. And I can hear the shakiness in her voice as she calls me. And I can hear her go, your dad's going in for surgery. I'm in Lafayette at Arnett Hospital. I need you here. And this is an account of race that you know in the room with. And he said my face loses all color. And at that moment, I had a million emotions going through my head. And I sat there and he goes, what's wrong? And I go, I need to go to campus. I was in my car for campus because we had walked my apartment. And I made the hour drive from Indianapolis to Lafayette Arnett Hospital. And that hour drive felt like an eternity. Because no matter what I tried, whether it be listening to a podcast, listening to an audiobook, music, I couldn't stop thinking about mortality. I couldn't stop thinking about what my life would be like without him in some way. And it continued to resonate with me. And I'll never forget, and something I didn't think about until the next day, was when I got to Arnett, I was silent. And for those that know me, I'm a biology professor. I'm the opposite of silent. I'm an extroverted person. I love to talk to people. But in that moment, I was dead quiet. I didn't talk to anybody. The only thing I remember was asking the attendant in front of us, I need to see my mom. And I get to the waiting room with my mom, and I'm consoling my mom. I need to be there for her. I need to be there for her. And I'm sitting there continuously thinking, and I ask myself in my head, why can't I say anything? I'm sitting there freaking out because there's a tiny thread between life and death in my father. And I sit there and I finally realized why I was so quiet. because the person that instilled that extroversion, that energy, that joy of talking to people, sitting there, having gone through major heart surgery 2 hours ago. And I'll never forget the text I got the next day. The one thing I love about my dad is he always made time to check in. Just earlier today, he texted me, busy day, question. This text he always sends me, you got a busy day? Here it is. And Tuesday, he wakes up, and the first thing he does, I get a text at 12:41 p.m. on Tuesday. Busy day? And it gave me such relief to hear from him. Just knowing that he was okay, the surgery went well. And I continue to think about companionship. I had planned on talking about my father at this very event, but obviously the tone shifted on October 3rd. And I thought about what my dad said to my mom on the phone as he had a heart attack saying, hey, I'm driving to the emergency. His words were, don't tell me. Because in his moments where he could be dying, he didn't know if he was going to make it out of there. One of his last thoughts was, man, I don't want to scare my son. And that's what companionship is to me. It's putting somebody else above your own current feelings. And in that moment, hearing that from my mom in that waiting room, she said to me, oh, he didn't want me to know. I was great, to say the least. I wanted to know about my dad having a major medical emergency. But it made me realize how much he cared about me, because even in a moment where he was horrified, he drove himself to the emergency room without telling me anything. He was thinking about me. He was worried about me. And that's what companionship is to me. It's that putting somebody else above yourself. And I'm still happy to hear from my dad every day. I check in with him every day. He's doing well for those wondering. But it's a moment I'll never forget.
Thank you so much, David. That was wonderful. Now I know it's going to be some more you think about a story you want to tell. We got any slips? We got pens, pencils, you can write your name on. I'm going to slow down so you can fill out a slip. Well, our next teller is another famous person. I think the host of The Price is Right, because I just have one word on it, Drew.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So Thanksgiving 2018 was what's the best word? Catastrophic. And to kind of put a series of events in a sort of crash course ways, it really sets up the story of companionship. It went a little something like this: get a call the night before Thanksgiving. Hey, your mom and stepdad got into a fight, and not like a murder fight, like a fight. The police have been called. Mom got arrested. You got to bail mom out. Mom lives in Tennessee, so that means myself and my lovely wife hop in the car, booking on down to Tennessee, bail mom out. Fast forward on over to Christmas. Mom has the idea, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're still going to try to have a good Christmas for everybody, salvage the whole family thing. So we are going to do still Christmas with the whole family, including stepdad's family, at stepdad's big family's house. And mom thought, yeah, it's going to be me, you, your wife should come along, and then it'll just be us with everybody else. What happens at that point? Once we kind of get to the door, I think it's a true test of companionship. To get out of that situation, I needed some companionship, or I didn't know where I was going to get it. And then conversely, I certainly had the office of companionship that time. Basically, when we get to this family's house on Christmas Day of 2018, we get a lot of weird stares, right? Like, ooh, why would you even show up after everything that happened? What are you gonna do? Oh, you're gonna sit over there? That's where you're gonna sit? Oh, you actually decided to fix a plate. That's interesting. Oh, cool. Right, so little comments, stares, things of that nature. And so one person who shall remain unnamed, TJ. TJ, who by that time had filled himself up with Christmas spirit, let's say, and was really feeling it, and decided, we're just gonna get these folks on now. And decides to try to come to fight me. It's Christmas! But okay. So what happens really quickly is my mom springs up in my defense. Some folks grab TJ, I grab mom, my wife being the lovely, wonderful person, companionship. Already has the door open, and she's like, let's go. So we zoom on out of the house, and as we're moving on, mom's like, and don't you ever come in this thing again. And then she's pulling my mom, and I'm pushing my mom, and then TJ is still climbing over family members headed towards me. Then he decides he's going to hop over the fence of the yard and go directly where our car is and just meet us there. And so, as I'm rolling up there, my wife just yells, keep cool. And I hear it, and I go, okay, got it. And TJ's standing in front of the car like this, and I just throw my hands up and I say, we're not going to fight today. We're all just going to go home. That doesn't quite convince them in the moment, but it was a good start. It was a really, really good start. So other family members ended up spilling out of the house with them, trying to restrain them, and getting companionship. One lovely family member who shall remain unnamed, but smelled like Marlboro menthols, and I really appreciate him, was like, okay, I'm gonna hold the ball, y'all keep going. And he did. He held them off. We all got in the car, including our younger sisters, and we're zooming out, and my mom was like, well, what should we do next? And I just looked at her and I said, we're going to watch Mario Poppins. And we do. And even in that little movie, in that moment, provided some friendship and some companionship that I did not know was going to be in. Things settled down, family is much better. And in that moment, on that day, we only got out of that situation because of friends that came with us and friends that did not know where to swing on that day. Thanks.
I just have one word to say. See, I have this philosophy. Some people are related to you, who you have to be around. Remember that. I'm out of breath. I was just listening. Thank you. All right, we reach this magic line basket. Pull out another name. There's still time to sign up. I know somebody was going to sign up. But right now, we're fantastic. Richard Close, coming to the table.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? Good, all right. I want to tell you about a woman, a tall woman. Who's the tallest woman in this crowd? How tall are you? 5'2". Anyone taller than 5'2"?
It's
5'8". She wins? Okay. All right, you're 5'8". Get it from that. Do you sometimes feel out of place because you're taller than other people?
Absolutely.
You do? Want to let them down? Okay. Well, let me tell you, go ahead and sit down, let me tell you about it. I
I'm saying this shelf up here is probably 18 feet above the ground. That's how tall Anna Swan was. Anna Swan was born in Canada, and she was born of normal-sized parents. This was in the 1800s. That's a true story. It's a real person. And she's right about, by age 17, she was a full 8 feet tall. And what are you going to do when you're that tall? Where are you going to sit down? Where are you going to lay down? How are you going to get to town and buggy? What, you know, how does it going to work? Well, one guy in the world was looking for somebody 8 feet tall. And that was P.T. Barnum. He had a Barnum family circus. At that time, he had a place on Broadway in New York City. And he had Tom Thumb, the little guy, he had a bearded lady, he had all kinds of acts that people would come and pay money for. And one of the scouts told him about Anna Swan up there in Canada. And he sent word that he would like to hire her. Her father was a farmer. He didn't want to lose the pork can, but Barnum offered $23 a week in gold, 3 trips on the year, a tutor 3 times a week, and she could bring her mother with her. So the farmer, the average income in those days was about $130 a year. So gold coming in would help out a lot. So he acquiesced, and the mother and the daughter moved to New York. And Anna took these lessons. She learned how to sing. She learned how to play the piano. She told stories. She was a sideshow, but not a freak sideshow. She was an interesting sideshow. People would pay a nickel to get into the theater, circus theater, and then they paid 25 cents to talk to Anna, hear Anna sing, and listen to her. She was there about 3 years, and the place caught fire down on the first floor. All the acts lived upstairs on the 3rd floor. And so the way to get out was blocked on the 1st floor, and they had to run upstairs and climb out a window for safety. Everybody got out except Anna. Why? Too big for the window. So the workers, the circus workers came back and broke down the brick wall, made the hole big enough for Anna to get out. They got a, what you call a hook and tackle kind of thing, and it took 18 men to get her down 3 floors on the ground. So she survived that ordeal. 3 years later, the place caught on fire again, and this time it burned to the ground. So P.T. Barnum had all this talent under contract. He had to pay them, whether they worked or not. And so what he did was he farmed them out to different circuses. They would pay him a certain amount for the right to use his talent. So he could survive whatever rebuilding the theater at Broadway. Well, it just so happens that Anna's contract was sold to a guy in New Jersey. And this guy owned a circus and it traveled. And he also owned the contract to a giant from eastern Kentucky. His name was named after the president after Andrew Jackson. And his last name was Bates. And so Bates was traveling the circus in the Cincinnati area. Anna was doing the circus in the New York area. Because of the fire, they ended up working for the same manager. And he decided to take them to London, England. He figured one of them would draw a crowd, 2 of them would really draw a crowd. So they boarded the ship in New Jersey, headed to England. They were on the ship for 10 days. Now, you've been on a ship before, and you know how small those rooms are. Can you imagine being 8 foot tall? He was 7'9". Can you imagine trying to get into the little cabins? I'm trying to sleep in that bed? I can't. So they spent most of their time outside, and when they looked out, other people were this tall, and they were this tall, and they could see each other. And so they wound up talking, finding out about each other. Neither of them had ever seen another giant. And by the time they arrived in England, they had fallen in love. 10 days aboard a ship in the middle of the ocean. No other giants in sight. They'd never seen anyone that they were attracted to. And now they fell in love. So the promoter knew that he had something hot. So he had they were medical societies and the press would come together and ask all the questions they wanted of the man and woman. And that filled the newspapers for a few days. And the story goes that half of England fell in love with these giants. They'd never seen any of them before. One of the people that really fell in love with them was Queen Victoria. She invited them to the castle. And when they came, she invited them 3 times overall. When they came the first time, she presented them with gifts. Watch each the size of a saucer, diamonds and jewels in it, and a 6-foot chain. She offers to pay for the wedding if they wanted to get married in England. So they decided they couldn't turn that down. And so about a month later, they were married in England. Her wedding dress took about 100 yards of cloth, another 50 yards of veil. He wore a black suit with his watch, with the Queen of England, and they were married. They became the tallest couple that ever lived. You go to the record books, they're still in there as the tallest couple that ever lived. They joined together, they traveled for a few years on circuses, and they found a place in Ohio that they wanted to retire to. 160 acres, 22 miles west of Youngstown, about 60 miles south of Lake Erie. So they bought this place, and they built their own home. 14 and a half feet high walls, 8.5 foot doors, windows were 5 feet off the ground. All the furniture was made for their size. The bed was 10 feet in length. And whenever anybody would come to visit them, they would have to climb up into the chairs, sit on the bed or whatever, and they would just laugh at them. So what they experienced all their life of being too big for the regular seats that they now experience when people came to visit them. She had a boa constrictor that just ran all over the place. She had a monkey named Buttons that was chained outside and ran all over the place. He had a parrot that if we talked to it, tried to get it to talk, he would say, "Get off my property!" And they amused themselves this way. Now think about this. This is before television, before radio, before the movies. The average person was making $130 a year. Each of them was paid $400 a week. Almost $5,000 each. $10,000 came into their coffers annually. They were it. They were George Clooney of their day. And so when I think about companionship, I think about how lonely each of them was before they met, and how grateful they were. And when they found someone on the inside, they found someone that was just like them and they could share the world with. She died at age 42, he lived at the age of 82. But she also was the only woman. You know, you think about the giant stories in the Bible and everywhere else, where did they come from? They had to come from average size women. And she had 2 babies. One died stillborn, one lived for 11 days. But she's the only giantess that we know being birth to 2 children. So she's an interesting character, and I always think of her when I think about companionship. Thank you.
That is an exciting story. Let's just let you know there's somebody for everybody.
Amen.
And anyway, I'm sick.
Let me just say, if anybody's interested in that, I've got a little booklet on that if you're interested.
The tallest person in Indiana. I'm sure.
Sandy Allen.
Yes, very good.
I'm gonna look that up tonight, so
Sandy Allen.
Sandy.
all right now. Anybody else want to slip beside their name? I have nothing to do but MC this program. So our next teller is going to talk to us about companion or companionship in Shannon Center.
Thank you. Unlike Jacob, my dad became very ill, and not a lot of people were worried about him. He was a very tough, difficult man. He was stubborn and he held grudges. And so not a lot of people came to see him at the hospital as he was dying of respiratory failure. Precisely 0 besides me, and when I guilted my sisters into coming. And my mom, who had been married to him for a very long time, didn't really want much to do with it. But to her credit, she did show up. But she did leave a lot of it to me. And I had to sit there and talk to him. And it was the most I'd ever talked to him, really. And I had to hear all the stories, and he was still telling me why he was mad at so-and-so, and all these ridiculous stories. I really came from a different era where it was enough to just support us. I mean, I could just see him at the BMW smoking his cigarettes. And they would look over their heads, what are they bitching about? Oh, I don't know, you can talk to us? That would be nice. So, when it got near the end, I told him that I was going to call his brother and sister, whom he had not spoken with in like 20 years, because they'd gotten in a fight over their dad's tools and who was going to take them out of the garage when he died. My dad was just kind of defeated. He was like, okay. And so I called his brother, and he was too ill to come, but his sister came. And I had not seen my aunt in 20 years, but I heard she was a leader in life lesbian, and good for her. I was excited about finally having some diversity in my family. And so she rushed down to Northwest Indiana for Michigan, and as soon as she came in intensive care, she had this woman with her who was a little person, and she had a cane. And she was so happy to see me, and she said, "This is my companion." And I said, "Great." And her companion was a lovely person. And my aunt came around the side of the bed to my dad, who looked very surprised to see her. And she said, "Dennis, I'm so sorry I haven't talked to you in all these years." And he had a ventilator on, and he just said, "No, it's my fault." And I burst into tears, because finally he wasn't being so stubborn. And my sister was sitting next to me, and she was like in her mid-30s at the time. And she was crying too. And then she whispers to me, "Companion, is that what we're supposed to call midgets now?" Little person, a companion, is partner. She's like, "Oh, I'm so glad I asked you." I am too. So if it weren't for my estranged aunt's companion, and then rushing down to be at my dad's bedside as he lay dying, I don't know that I would have seen the side of him that was actually very fragile, very loving. And so I really owe a lot to them both. Thanks.
Thank you, Shannon. I might have laughed too loud. But she's the only person I know who would take a sad story and turn it into a light. There's still time to sign up and you want to tell a story now. Oh, I'm slipping. Let's see who this belongs to. So, man.
22-pound caretaker named Thor. However, crazy turn of events, I'm going to talk about my Aunt Lynn. My Aunt Lynn is a very caring, sweet, but stern person. I was an extremely angsty teenager, and the moment she would tell me to sit up, I would sit up. Because I knew that she had my best interest in mind, and also her voice was kind of scary. But I looked up to my Aunt Lynn because she was strong. She took amazing sailing trips to all these tropical, exotic places. But most importantly to my 6th or 7th grade self, she had dogs, plural. If she wanted a puppy, she went and got a puppy. Because no one was going to tell her she couldn't, but my me. More specifically though, she showed dogs in dog shows in obedience. And actually she still does it today, specifically black Labradors, black English Labradors. And so at any given time, she always had at least 3 black labs running around her house. And to me, that was pretty cool. Knowing my interest in dogs, she would invite me to come along and help her on the road when she would go to shows. And we would spend the hours of driving discussing what I named my future 12 different AKC bred show dogs. And it just, I looked up to her. She was an idol to me. And so at these dog shows, she would take 2 or 3 of her dogs. And on this particular trip, she took 2. And I can't even remember the other dog she brought because my favorite dog came along with us, and his name was Joe. Joe was a beautiful lab. He had a nice round head, full body, and just these big brown eyes that looked up at you. And if you were too close when he was about to get a treat, he would just whack your leg with his giant tail over and over again. But it didn't matter because he was just such a good dog. And the thing about Joe is he was very smart, but he also just wanted to be a dog. So he knew what he was supposed to do, and they went to their training so many days a week, and he would do what he was supposed to do, get his treat, go lay down. That's all Joe wanted to do. So at this particular show, my aunt starts to walk into the ring, and they do the first event, and so on and so forth, and eventually they come to the scent portion. So for those not familiar, in obedience, they do a scent search. So they have a bunch of these little looking dumbbells, either made of metal or leather, and there's a specific one that the owner has touched and put his or her scent on. The dog has to find it amongst the rest of the dumbbells that don't smell like the owner. And so my aunt sends Joe off, just like she had done so many times before, and something about the way he walked out there that time just really gave us a feeling that something interesting was about to happen. And it wasn't going to be good for my aunt or the judge. And he walks out there, and he looks back at my Aunt Lynn, he looks back at the articles, he looks at the judge, and he takes a circle, which is nothing unusual. Sometimes dogs need a second to figure out which one to pick up. But then he circles again, and again, and again. And I kid you not, I felt like I was watching an SNL skit. Because slowly but surely, what felt like 10 minutes passes, and everyone is just waiting for this dog to do something other than circle. And eventually, he does. He lays down. And my Aunt Lynn, obviously they were disqualified. She grabs his sleeve. She's very professional. She walks out there. She, loops him onto the leash, and she walks back, and she's kind of brushing it off, laughing, and then starts to mumble to herself. And all of a sudden, you just see Joe, and I swear to you, look back with the biggest grin and climb to his crate. And while he never, ever did a dog show again, he lived a very happy rest of his life as a normal, domesticated canine companion.
You guys just did not consult me. Listen, I've got some announcements to make as you decide whether or not you're going to sign up to tell our story. I'd like to thank our judges Sam Wilson, Alice Madeline, and Michelle Goodrich. Thank you very much. Just in case you don't have anything to do, on November 16th, join Freetown Village at the Indiana Landmark Center for conversations in Indiana, African American history, and culture. And the speaker is Lieutenant Colonel Joseph H. Ward, MD. Or you might want to join Storytelling Arts of Indiana on December 2nd for Jennifer Monroe's telling of a Christmas Carol. That'll be at 7 p.m. at Eugene and Maryland Good Indiana History Center. Now, we're passing out these canary yellow forms for a reason. You can win something, like tickets for complimentary tickets to an upcoming show. And you don't want to go, because it's not going to snow until January. Mark my words. And you'll want to be out there with the rest of us. Our next Story Slam is going to be December 20th, and it's going to be at Lawson's on Massachusetts Avenue, and the theme is time, T-I-M-E. When you come in with a story about T-H-Y-M-E, we'll let you tell it. But let's start with who we are. I'm going to stall because we need to collect those before the evening is over. Let me tell you a story about the last Story Slam. You know, I usually get my notes and I have them on my phone. I even bought a new phone, so it would actually open up and I could actually read the notes. Unless I was pointing to ahead, you know, and doing obsolescence into their products. But at any rate, I had my phone in the basket. That was on a Wednesday night. Friday, I decided I needed to use my phone. Why, I don't know. But I couldn't find it. I hunted through the house. I hunted through the car. I hunted through everything I ever wanted. I looked in the garage. I finally decided, find my iPhone. Okay? So I hooked up my iPad and said, find my iPhone. And it said nothing. And then I said, I've lost my iPhone. I'm not going to have another one. But at any rate, something said, check your devices. So it showed me where my computer was, showed me where my iPad was, and it showed that my phone was down on New York and West Street. And I'm thinking, how could that be? And I remember, it was still in the library basket. The library basket was at the History Center. So that Saturday I was born, I got my phone. I called her and I said, do you have my phone? And she was like, what? But it was in the basket and I got it back. So I thank you very much. But I'd like to read to you our third place winner, winning a grand total of, I forget, 10 bucks. No beauty. Is Jennifer Cleveland. Is Jack Black.
They all tie with them, but she said
Is it 25 and
well, we've had ties before. We need a better way.
50 for the winner, 25 for the second place. 50 winner.
okay. Just in case y'all want to come back. First place is 50 bucks, second place is 25, or third place
Oh, second time for third.
is 10. It's something like that. You can't go soft with the money you win. But you can have another something. You know, LOTW.
Get a little bit of adrenaline rush, you know?
Yeah.
We're collecting the yellow slips, the canary slips, but you might want something else. Something better than that. And remember, our next thing is
time. Something we're running out of.